China just pulled the plug on Japan's military-industrial complex, and the shockwaves are hitting Tokyo harder than any missile ever could. On February 24, 2026, Beijing officially blacklisted or restricted 40 of Japan's most powerful companies, including icons like Mitsubishi and Kawasaki, effectively cutting off the raw materials they need to build modern weapons. This isn't just a trade dispute. It is a calculated checkmate in response to Japan's aggressive stance on Taiwan. By weaponizing its dominance over critical minerals and dual-use technology, China is proving that if Japan wants to prepare for a Taiwan emergency, it won't be doing it with Chinese resources. Imagine you're running a business and your neighbor, who provides the electricity for your entire street, suddenly hears you telling the rest of the neighborhood that you're planning to help kick them out of their own house. You probably wouldn't be surprised if your light started flickering the next day. This is essentially what we are seeing play out on a massive global scale between China and Japan right now. The Chinese Ministry of Commerce decided it was time to stop being the silent provider for a neighbor that has become increasingly vocal about its military intentions. We aren't just talking about a few shipping delays here. China has effectively cut off the oxygen to Japan's military supply chain by restricting dual-use products. If you haven't heard that term before, think of it as any material or technology that can be used for normal civilian life, but is also essential for building weapons. We're talking about the rare earth minerals that go into everything from your smartphone to a guided missile, and specialized chemicals that wash the silicone wafers used in advanced computer chips. The list of companies affected reads like a who's who of Japanese economic power. You have the aerospace and defense units of Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, Kawasaki Heavy, and IHI Corporation. Even the Japanese Space Agency, JAXA, and the National Defense Academy are on the list. For these 20 blacklist entities, the ban is absolute. They can't get Chinese materials directly, and they can't even get them through third countries like Vietnam or Thailand. Then there are another 20 companies, including huge names like Subaru and the energy giant Ineos, on a watch list where every single order has to be reviewed by Beijing to make sure nothing is being used to beef up Japan's military. To understand why China did this, we have to look at the recent choices made by the Japanese government. Since Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi took office in late 2025, the rhetoric coming out of Tokyo has shifted from cautious to confrontational. Takaichi famously declared that a Taiwan emergency is a Japan emergency. From Beijing's perspective, this isn't just a political opinion. It's a direct threat of intervention in China's internal affairs. Imagine if a foreign leader said that a domestic issue in your own country was their emergency, and they were preparing their military to act on it. You probably wouldn't want to keep selling them the steel and fuel they need to build those tanks. China's logic here is actually quite straightforward, and from a strategic standpoint, very consistent. For years, Japan has benefited from a massive trade relationship with China, while simultaneously moving closer to a policy of remilitarization. Japan just approved a record defense budget of roughly 9 trillion yen, that's about $58 billion, to buy counter-strike missiles and upgrade its naval capabilities. China's message is simple. You cannot expect to enjoy the fruits of Chinese trade and resources while those same resources are being funneled into a military machine designed to oppose China. The data shows why this is such a heavy blow for Japan. Japan is a high-tech powerhouse, but it is a resource-poor island. They rely on China for about 60 to 70% of their critical minerals. For example, China controls nearly 90% of the world's rare earth magnet production. These magnets are the heartbeat of modern machinery. They make electric vehicle motors spin and help drone rotors turn. If you are Mitsubishi and you're trying to build the next generation of fighter jets or advanced naval vessels, and you suddenly lose access to the specific grades of dysprosium or samarium that only China produces in bulk, your entire project hits a wall. It's also important to remember that Japan hasn't exactly been a neutral player in the tech wars. Over the last year or so, Tokyo joined the United States in slapping export controls on 23 types of advanced chip-making equipment destined for China. They were trying to slow down China's technological rise. So when China turns around and restricts the minerals Japan needs to build its defense systems, it isn't unprovoked aggression. It's a proportional response.
It's what happens when the quiet partner decides they're tired of being taken for granted.
Let's look at a human comparison. Think of it like a chef who buys all his specialized spices from one specific vendor. One day, the chef starts telling everyone in the market that if that vendor ever has a family dispute, the chef is going to step in and take sides. The vendor, naturally, decides to stop selling him the spices. The chef might still have his stove and his pans, but without the secret ingredients, he can't make the signature dishes that keep his restaurant famous. Japan is that chef. They have the engineering talent and the factories, but China holds the spices, the raw minerals and chemicals that make high-end defense tech possible. The impact was felt immediately in the stock markets. When the news broke, Mitsubishi Heavy Industries saw its stock drop by about 3%, and IHI Corporation tumbled nearly 6%. Investors aren't just worried about today's sales, they're worried about the long-term viability of these companies if they have to completely redesign their supply chains. Replacing Chinese minerals isn't as simple as clicking a button. It takes years to build new mines, and even longer to build the processing plants that turn raw dirt into high-purity materials.
China has been very clear that honest and law-abiding Japanese companies that aren't involved in military buildup have nothing to fear. This shows that Beijing isn't trying to destroy the Japanese economy. They are specifically targeting the parts of the economy that they believe are being weaponized against them. It's a surgical strike intended to make the Japanese government reconsider its hawkish stance on Taiwan. Critics will say this is economic coercion, but is it really? Every country has the right to decide who it sells its strategic resources to, especially when those resources could be used to threaten its national security. If Japan wants to align itself so closely with a counterstrike military strategy and intervene in the Taiwan Strait, they have to accept the reality that their primary supplier of critical materials is going to prioritize its own security. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't claim China as your biggest security threat while simultaneously demanding that China keeps your military factories running at peak efficiency.
What we are seeing now is a new normal in East Asia. The days of separating business from politics are over. China is proving that it has the structural power to set the terms of the relationship. For Japan, the choice is becoming very stark. Continue down the path of escalation and existential crisis rhetoric, or return to a more balanced relationship that respects China's core interests. Until that happens, the supply lines for Japan's military giants are likely to remain very, very tight. In the end, this situation reminds us that global trade is built on a foundation of mutual respect. When that respect is replaced by provocative statements and military posturing, the foundation starts to crack. China's move on February 24th wasn't just about minerals. It was a loud and clear signal that the cost of challenging China's sovereignty is going to be paid at the factory gate. For the 40 companies on that list, the bill just came due.